Come on, at least wear a suit, you broke loser. Don't tell me you don't own one.
Daniel said to me with a loud laugh. The classmates I was reminiscing with also looked shocked. I do own a suit, I retorted, irritated by Daniel's words. I couldn't understand why I had to feel irritated in what was supposed to be a joyful place. Daniel has always looked down on me. It's about time I made him understand. I had made a certain decision. My name is Mike Jones. I'm 30 years old. As a child, due to my dad's job, we moved a lot. When I was in the 7th grade, my dad got transferred again, and we moved to the countryside.
Sorry for another transfer, but it looks like this will be the last one,
my dad told me cheerfully. Changing schools was a pain for me, being shy and introverted, but knowing it was the last time made me feel relieved. The middle school I transferred to was much smaller compared to my previous one, but all my classmates were kind, and I was excited for the new life ahead. However, there was one person who didn't think well of me. That was Daniel Rickley.
Hey, nerd. Stop just studying all the time.
Daniel would pick on me at every opportunity. I was just copying notes.
Shut up. Don't talk back. Especially when you don't even have a mom.
Daniel intimidated me by raising his voice. My mom passed away due to illness when I was little. I wish I could talk to her if possible. But that's impossible.
Hey Daniel, don't say things like that.
When I looked sad, my classmates often stood up for me. But that only seemed to make Daniel less amused, and his taunts continued until we graduated middle school. Whenever I scored well on tests, he'd accuse, "You must have cheated, right?" And when I, being in the track team, recorded a good time, he'd claim, "That's a false start, do it over." Daniel thoroughly disliked me. I spent my middle school years avoiding him. My turning point came during high school entrance exams. I heard rumors that Daniel was going to a different school out of state, so I intentionally chose a high school close to my middle school. I thought I'd be free from Daniel. That's all I was thinking. Just as I wished, we went to different high schools, and I no longer had to deal with Daniel. I felt an indescribable sense of relief. I made new friends in high school and enjoyed my life there. I joined the track team again and spent my after-school hours working up a good sweat together with my teammates. It was a truly fulfilling and fun time, unlike my middle school days. After enjoying my high school life, I got a job at a sewing factory right after graduating. Though I wanted to go to college, I didn't want to burden my dad, who raised me on his own, any further. My dad had said it was okay for me to go to college, but I turned down the offer and started working at the factory instead. The job I landed was at a sewing factory for an apparel company. It wasn't that I had any particular interest in clothes, but this factory was the only place willing to hire someone with just a high school diploma like me. Until I got this job, I had never even touched a sewing machine, much less knew anything about making clothes. However, my bosses and co-workers taught me everything kindly and so patiently. 5 years into the job, I had finally learned all the tasks in the factory.
Hey Mike, I can't get this right.
Oh, let me do it. I think you should do like this.
I see. You've been impressive lately. I need to work harder.
My senior coworker, Harper, said with a laugh. I, who didn't have any special qualities, had become knowledgeable in sewing. My colleagues depended on me. Life was fulfilling until that day. That day, something happened. I went to the factory as usual and was planning what to do on that day with Harper. Suddenly, the entrance got noisy. Is there something special happening today? I asked Harper. She also looked confused.
Our boss said, today there's supposed to be an important deal.
I turned my gaze towards the factory entrance. And there he was, Daniel, the last person I wanted to see. I rubbed my eyes and looked again, but it was definitely Daniel. Why is he here? I kept my head down and continued working quietly.
Thank you for coming all this way.
Well, it's an important deal, of course.
The boss was fawning over Daniel. Then, I could hear Daniel's voice getting closer to where I was. And when I finally looked up, Daniel was standing right in front of me, looking at me and laughing. He had found me. I had a bad feeling.
What? You're working here? I heard you started working right after high school, but in a factory. That's hilarious.
I ignored his words and kept working. Then, the boss, looking surprised, spoke to Daniel.
You know each other. Mike has been working hard and has become a vital part of this factory.
Daniel suddenly started laughing again.
This guy is a vital part. Back in middle school, he was a complete failure, always causing trouble for everyone. I can't believe it.
Daniel's words caused the boss's face to harden. Harper, who was working next to me, looked at Daniel with a puzzled expression.
A failure, you say?
Yes, really. Right, Mike?
Daniel suddenly turned to me. Annoyed, I said, I didn't cause trouble for anyone. Can't you stop spouting nonsense? Daniel's face became slightly angry.
I'm not spouting nonsense. You've been a failure since back then. How dare you talk back to me?
I was at a loss for words. Then, Daniel said something shocking.
Sir, if you want to do business with my company, you'll have to fire this guy. If he's here, I'm sure the company won't do well. He's a jinx.
Suddenly, the factory fell silent. My colleagues looked at Daniel with shocked faces. The boss took a deep breath and then said to Daniel, "Well, let's have some tea over there," and led him to the office. I couldn't understand what right he had to try and get me fired. Daniel has always been someone who tries to get his way in everything. As I sighed, Harper looked at me with concern.
Don't worry about what that person says. He's truly unpleasant.
Harper offered me kind words while we worked. He's always disliked me. He just wants to make me suffer this time too. Over the past 5 years, I've worked hard and sweated it out in this factory, and the boss knows it. Even if Daniel, the client representative, requested my firing, I was confident the boss would never let me go. However, that confidence was shattered. That evening, the boss asked me to come to his office. Having never been called by the boss before, I entered the office, puzzled. The boss seemed a bit down, and he began to speak.
Mike, I'm really sorry, but could you take a break from work until the deal with TA Corporation is finalized?
Excuse me. I couldn't believe my ears. I never expected to hear something like this from the boss. He continued.
You understand how important the contract with TA Corporation is to our company, right?
TA Corporation is a well-known company in the apparel industry, renowned to the point where nobody in this field hasn't heard of them. I remembered Harper mentioning that this deal could involve hundreds of millions of dollars. Yes.
Apparently, Daniel has taken a dislike to you. If that causes us to lose the contract, it would be a huge loss for the company. But I don't want to fire you because you've been working so hard. Could you just take a break for a while? I'd like to pretend to fire you.
All I could do was nod to the boss's desperate words. I couldn't understand why I, who hadn't done anything wrong, had to take a break from work. But for the sake of the boss and the company, I had no choice but to comply with his request. For a week, I stayed at home. I was unable to focus on anything. I hope the work I was responsible for is okay with Harper handling it. Then, Harper called me. There was some work she couldn't figure out. I tried to explain over the phone, but when I couldn't convey it well, I reluctantly headed to the factory. I sneaked into the factory and approached Harper.
Mike, I'm really sorry for bothering you during your time off.
Harper said in a quiet, apologetic voice. Making sure not to be seen by other coworkers, I quietly showed her how to do the work. She seemed to understand the work method and thanked me. As I was about to leave the factory without anyone noticing, an incident occurred. At the entrance was Daniel. He was looking surprised. Then, he raised his voice.
Why are you here? Weren't you fired?
Damn it. I involuntarily stepped back. Hearing his voice, the boss came out of his office. The boss was looking troubled.
Mike.
I just came back for something I forgot. I lied to Daniel on the spot. Then Daniel, scoffing at me and said, "See, you're bothering everyone. Bay's no place for a high school graduate like you to get employed anywhere. Get out of here if you understand." The boss nearby just silently watched, saying nothing. What have I done to Daniel? I was sick of Daniel's behavior. At that moment, something inside me snapped. Daniel, why do you always have to be against me? I haven't done anything to you. Unable to hold back any longer, I raised my voice. The factory co-workers looked at me with concern. Especially Harper, who seemed about to run over to me with a worried expression. Daniel, unfazed by my words, retorted, "I hate you because you haven't put in any effort at all. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked to get to where I am today? Meanwhile, you, with just a high school diploma, are breezing through an easy job. You think I haven't put in any effort? Give me a break. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked at this factory?" Daniel burst out laughing.
Anyone can work in a factory, can't they?
No matter how hard I try to talk to him, I can't get through. That's what I realized at that moment. It was just a waste of time to continue this conversation anymore. I took off the place. Even after I had left, Daniel continued to laugh looking at me. As I ran, I made a decision. A few days later, I called the boss and told him I was resigning. I thought I shouldn't cause any more trouble for the company because of my presence. The boss tried desperately to stop me, but my mind was made up. After that, I started job hunting, but it was frustrating not being able to find the next job right away. However, my father said, "You've worked hard until now. So it's okay to take a break. Life is long. A little rest won't hurt. Inspired by my father's words, I spent a year doing what I wanted. Having worked earnestly for 5 years, I had more than enough savings. I'll take my time finding the next job. When the time came, I smoothly landed my next job. Then, I began working hard again. 6 more years passed, and I was now 30. My job was going well and living peaceful days. One day, I arranged to meet Mason, a middle school classmate, at a cafe for the first time in a long while. Mason was my best friend during middle school. Since we went to the same high school, we were like best friends and occasionally met up to share updates after graduating. Now, Mason works for a multinational company, traveling all over the world. I was delighted when he wanted to meet.
Hey, long time no see.
Mason greeted me cheerfully. It's been 2 years since we last met before you went abroad. Reuniting with Mason brought back memories, and our conversation flowed.
Hey, why don't you come to the reunions?
He suddenly asked. I was puzzled by what he meant. A reunion.
Didn't you get an invitation about a month ago? This time, Daniel and I were organizing it, and Daniel said you wouldn't be attending the reunion.
It was news to me. I hadn't received any invitation. It seemed Daniel intentionally didn't send me one, not wanting me at the reunion. I didn't get any invitation. Daniel probably didn't send it to me on purpose, not wanting me to come. Mason was surprised by my words.
Is that so? I had thought you just didn't want to attend the reunion. He's the worst.
Mason said angrily while sipping his coffee. Daniel being unpleasant isn't just a recent thing, actually. I told Mason everything that had happened 6 years ago. He looked at me incredulously.
I'm at a loss for words that such a thing happened.
Yo, I figured, but I am who I am today because of him. So, I've let bygones be bygones. Indeed, Daniel was unpleasant, but thanks to him, I was able to grow stronger. Without him, I might have remained a person with little self-confidence and no particular quality forever. Over 6 years, I came to think this way.
What about the reunion? Daniel will be there too. Want to skip it?
Mason asked, considering my feelings. I laughed and said to Mason, since we're here, I'll attend. Mason smiled happily. Honestly, I was a bit afraid of meeting Daniel. He would probably just insult me again. But I am not the same person I was 6 years ago. I decided to attend the reunion with pride. After promising to meet at the reunion, we parted ways to go home. I was truly grateful to him. If I hadn't met him today, I would never have known about the reunion. Thinking of the classmates I would meet after a long time, I headed home. On the day of the reunion, I wore a new shirt. Seeing that, my dad asked me,
Aren't you going to wear a suit to the reunion? Isn't it at a 3-star hotel?
He looked at me worriedly. It was understandable for him to be concerned. A 3-star hotel as the venue meant I had to dress appropriately. But I didn't want to wear a suit on my day off. That's why I had prepared a shirt that was casual but suitable for a 3-star hotel for today. I'm going to attend in this outfit. It'll be fine. He still looked worried.
But that Daniel guy will be there. Right. Won't he make snide remarks again?
I had told him everything that happened 6 years ago. He still harbored resentment towards Daniel, seemingly holding a grudge. I reassured him, even if he makes snide remarks, it's okay, I don't care anymore, and smiled. Seeing my smile, Dad seemed reassured and didn't say anything more. I left the house looking forward to reuniting with my old classmates. I felt light on my feet. Entering the 3-star hotel, I was greeted by a grand chandelier and a glamorous atmosphere. Filled with anticipation, I made my way to the hotel's restaurant.
Mike, thanks for coming.
Mason ran over to me, looking happy. Hey, I'm so excited about today. I smiled naturally just by talking to him. We entered the restaurant. The restaurant was booked exclusively for the reunion, and a lavish spread of food was laid out. Even though the reunion hadn't officially started, many of my old classmates were already there, engaged in lively conversations. Seeing me, my classmates approached with cries of joy.
Mike, it's been since middle school graduation. It's so nostalgic.
My classmates approached me cheerfully. We were engaging in endless conversations about the silly and funny stories from our middle school days. Before I knew it, the reunion had started, and my classmates began to gather around one after another.
Daniel has really made something of himself, hasn't he?
A classmate suddenly started talking about Daniel. What's so great about him? I asked, genuinely curious. The classmate quickly started explaining.
He's apparently the sales manager at TA Corporation.
TA Corporation, as in that big company. Daniel was always smart, wasn't he? He's the most successful among us.
And he's even pushing forward deals with that major apparel manufacturer.
So, Daniel became a manager right after I left my previous job. Well, it's none of my business. As I was thinking this, the entrance to the restaurant became even noisier.
Oh, speak of the devil.
There stood Daniel. And he dressed in a fine suit. I involuntarily looked away. Daniel didn't know I was attending this reunion. In fact, he had intended not to invite me. I thought he would freak out if he found out I was here. I looked at Mason. In a low voice, Mason told me, "You haven't done anything wrong. Just stand tall and proud." Mason's words eased my mind a bit. I shouldn't care about Daniel at all. "Thanks, Mason," I said, and continued our conversation. But soon, Daniel spotted me and looked as if he had seen a ghost, probably not expecting me to be here. He raised his voice.
Why are you here? You weren't invited.
Daniel's face turned red with anger. Mason invited me to the reunion. If it's a middle school reunion, I have every right to attend, don't I? Daniel reacted immediately to my words.
I don't consider you my classmate. It's presumptuous of you to come to the reunion without my permission.
Hearing Daniel's words, the surrounding classmates began to murmur.
This is not the place for you.
Geez, how long will he keep insulting me before he's satisfied? I was utterly exhausted. So, you'll be satisfied if I leave? Daniel scoffed.
Yeah, that's right. Now get out of here. And that outfit, it's totally out of place here, isn't it?
I had managed to talk a bit with the classmates I wanted to, and thought it might be best to leave as he suggested. Then, he added insultingly,
Wear a suit at least, you poor thing. Don't tell me you don't own one.
I was speechless. What is he even talking about? I do own a suit. I just didn't want to wear one on my day off. Daniel laughed even more at my words. I couldn't understand what was so funny.
Don't act all tough. You didn't have the money to buy a suit, did you? You never owned one in the first place, did you? Admit it, you're broke.
I was shocked by his rudeness. There was nothing more to talk about. I was about to leave the place, but he uttered words I couldn't forgive.
Hey, should I give you one of my old suits? It's more expensive than you could ever afford in your lifetime.
Although I was frustrated inside, I pretended to listen calmly.
If you want to wear suits like mine, try getting a job at a renowned company like I did. Though, that's impossible for someone incompetent like you.
I reached my breaking point. I couldn't understand why he had to go that far. Just as I was about to raise my voice, Mason shouted,
Mike doesn't need your hand-me-down suits.
I was shocked. Mason had always been gentle, and I had never seen him shout. That Mason was raising his voice for me. I was so surprised that I almost dropped my drink. Daniel, taken aback, glared at Mason.
Hand-me-downs. This suit is from KG Industries, the major suit manufacturer my company is about to deal with. Not something a poor person like Mike could easily afford.
Daniel, unfortunately, could you cancel that deal? The room seemed to go silent for a moment.
What?
Daniel acted as if he hadn't heard me. No helping it. I repeated the same words. I'm asking if you could cancel the deal between your company and mine. The room fell silent.
What are you talking about? My company has no deal with you.
Do you really not recognize my face? You know nothing, do you? I couldn't help but question Daniel, but he just laughed.
What's with that tone? You're Mike the incompetent, right? There's no other option.
I realized it was pointless to talk to Daniel and handed him my business card. Sorry for the late introduction. I'm Mike, the president of KG Industries. I mistakenly made a contract to create a collaborative product with your company, but I'd like it to be annulled.
What? President of KG Industries.
Daniel's face turned pale. Seeing Daniel's reaction, Mason said, That's why I told you he doesn't need your suit, he has plenty without yours, and burst into laughter. Yes, I am the president of the major suit manufacturer, KG Industries. Becoming president was triggered by the incident 6 years ago. After quitting my job, I struggled to find new work. Luckily, I had savings, so I decided to take it easy for a while and made a suit for my father on a whim. My father wore suits to work every day, and I wanted to make a stylish suit for him. The suit was quickly finished, and when I gave it to my father, he was delighted, making me feel proud. My father wore the suit I made to work the very next day. That evening, he asked me if I could make 2 more suits. Apparently, his colleagues wanted one after seeing my father's suit. Of course, I made suits for his colleagues too. Then the next day, someone else requested one. This cycle continued, and the demand for my suits grew. A month later, I was swamped with orders for dozens of suits. I was surprised that a suit I made on a whim became so popular. Seeing this, my father suggested, "Why don't you start a company?" Indeed, if I could manufacture suits in a factory, I could sell them immediately without making customers wait. Inspired, I decided to establish a company. Starting a business required a substantial amount of money, and I even took out loans, but the demand for my unique and stylish suits never ceased, and my company quickly grew. Just 6 years after founding my company, it went public and became a suit maker so famous that nobody didn't know who we were. One day, I got a direct call from the president of TA Corporation. He wanted to collaborate with my company to create a new product. Collaborating with a major apparel company like TA Corporation would only increase my company's fame. The president of TA Corporation was very enthusiastic, even saying he'd spare no expense for the collaboration. Memories of trouble with an employee from TA Corporation, Daniel, crossed my mind, but I decided to focus on a company and went ahead with the deal. However, knowing that Daniel was still an employee at TA Corporation, I started to feel I couldn't continue the deal. I didn't want anything to do with someone so disrespectful. When Daniel found out I was the president of KG Industries, he started apologizing to me, sweating bullets.
I had no idea you were the president. Please forgive me.
I ignored him and tried to leave the venue. He followed me and blocked my path.
Hey, I'm sorry. It was my fault.
It was too late for apologies. I sighed. It's too late. I won't forgive you. Then, Daniel shouted,
We're friends, aren't we? How can you be so cold? If the president finds out this deal fell through because of me, I'll be fired. Are you okay with that?
Daniel was acting arrogantly even then. I took out my smartphone and called someone. Daniel just watched, puzzled. Hello, I'm sorry, but let's cancel this deal.
What? What do you mean?
Your employee, Daniel's attitude is too much. I can't go through with the contract. The person I called was the president of TA Corporation. Knowing I was talking to the president, Daniel started to panic and fell to his knees.
What? I'll remove Daniel from the project. Please, reconsider.
No, I've made up my mind, I said and hung up the phone. Daniel realized it was futile and just sat there in silence. I looked down at him. I have one last question. Daniel stayed silent. But I continued. I needed to know. Why did you always look down on me? Didn't you think it was cruel, considering I never did anything to you? Daniel answered in a small voice. I was jealous. You succeeded at everything without any particular efforts, while I had to struggle. Only the person themselves knows how much effort and hardship they've gone through. It's terrible that you treated me so poorly because of that. Reflect on how much you've hurt me, I said and left the venue with Mason. Daniel seemed to be crying pitifully for a long time. Mason and I left the venue with clear faces. Finally, I could say what we wanted to Daniel. Mason, thanks. I thanked him. He was there for me. Mason smiled awkwardly and said, We're friends, aren't we? Of course, I do this much. Later, the president of TA Corporation and Daniel came to apologize to my company.
We're very sorry for the disrespectful behavior of our employee, Daniel. We'll reassign him to a regional office for reflection. Please forgive us.
The president apologized deeply next to Daniel. Daniel was also apologizing deeply.
I'm very sorry for my past actions and will make sure not to behave that way again.
I sighed and looked at my secretary, Harper. In a soft voice, she whispered, "He seems genuinely remorseful. Maybe it's okay to forgive him this time." Daniel was surprised by her presence.
You were there at that time.
Yes, when I started this company, I had invited Harper to join. Because I knew she would be a great support, and I wanted to work with her. Moreover, Harper and I had gotten married, becoming husband and wife.
My husband always appreciates your help.
Harper said, politely. Following that, the president of TA Corporation and I continued our discussion and decided to proceed with the deal. As the president said, Daniel was reassigned to a regional office and never appeared before me again. In his new position, he seemed to have changed his attitude completely, dedicating himself to his work. I hope he continues to live without causing trouble for others. The brand we co-developed with TA Corporation became a massive hit. We sold millions and generating millions of dollars in profit for my company. I realized that without Harper's words, none of this would have happened. I can't thank her enough. Moving forward, I plan to make this company even better and ensure Harper's happiness.